Women never forget a man who leaves a mark on their emotions, their mind, and their life in a way most guys never think about. That's what this topic is about. Today, we're talking about the behaviors, habits, and qualities men show that a woman can remember for years, even after the relationship ends, even if you were never officially dating, and even if she tries to move on. This isn't about manipulation or games. It's about understanding the deeper psychology of connection and how a man's presence can stay with a woman long after he's gone. Most men think women only remember the guy who bought expensive gifts, made grand romantic gestures, or constantly tried to impress them. But the truth is, women don't stay connected to a man because of material things. They remember the way a man made them feel. And when certain actions come naturally from a place of confidence, emotional maturity, and self-respect, those actions become unforgettable. Think about it. Every woman has a story of that one man who stood out. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't the richest, and he didn't have to try too hard. But something about him stayed in her mind, because his impact was emotional, psychological, and respectful. That's the kind of man we're talking about. So in this video, you're going to learn the things women never forget, not because it's a secret trick, but because most men simply don't do them. When you understand these principles, your presence becomes powerful. Not loud, not aggressive, not dramatic, just undeniable. The goal here is simple: to help men build stronger connections, hold themselves with confidence, and stand out without begging for attention. Whether you're dating, in a relationship, or single, these insights can change the way women experience you. Let's break down the things women never forget about a man, and why doing these things makes you unforgettable. 1. He gives her peace instead of stress. One thing women never forget is a man who brings peace into their life. Most men don't realize how rare that is. In a world full of arguments, games, mixed signals, jealousy, trust issues, and unnecessary drama, peace is priceless. Women deal with stress every single day, from work, family, friendships, and even their own insecurities. So when a man shows up with calm energy instead of chaos, he immediately stands out. A woman remembers the man who made her feel safe, relaxed, understood, and respected. She remembers the man who didn't turn every small misunderstanding into a war. She remembers the man who didn't need to raise his voice to make a point. She remembers the man who didn't bring confusion into her mind. A peaceful man isn't weak or soft. A lot of guys get that confused. Peace doesn't mean being a pushover. Peace is controlled strength. It's emotional intelligence. It's knowing how to respond instead of react. A peaceful man doesn't have to threaten, insult, or compete for attention. He has self-control. He listens before speaking. He chooses maturity over arguments. Women don't forget that kind of man because he makes them feel emotionally safe, and emotional safety is one of the strongest forms of attraction. The truth is, most women have dealt with men who drained their energy, men who were insecure, jealous, unpredictable, or angry over little things. When she finally experiences a man who communicates instead of criticizes, who apologizes instead of blaming, and who expresses himself without tearing her down, it feels different. It feels rare. It feels unforgettable. Peace also comes from a man who has control over his own life. He doesn't create drama because he's too busy growing, improving, and building. He has goals. He respects his time and hers. When something bothers him, he addresses it calmly, not with childish behavior. Women remember a man like that because he feels stable, and stability is attractive. A peaceful man knows when to walk away instead of argue for hours. He knows when a conversation requires patience. He knows that yelling doesn't equal strength. His confidence is quiet but powerful. And a woman never forgets how a peaceful man made her feel about herself. He helped her relax, think clearly, and trust the energy around him. Peace is not about doing everything she wants or avoiding conflict. Real peace comes from mutual respect, emotional maturity, and a calm presence. That kind of man becomes unforgettable, because in a world full of noise, he was silence. In a world full of stress, he was comfort. And once a woman experiences that, it's nearly impossible for her to forget it or settle for anything less again. 2. He sets standards and sticks to them. A woman never forgets a man who has standards. Not just preferences, not just opinions, but clear boundaries and principles he refuses to compromise. Most men don't understand how powerful this is. Many guys will say they want respect, loyalty, honesty, and effort. But the moment a woman slips, disrespects them, or gives bare minimum energy, they stay quiet because they are scared to lose her. A man without standards becomes forgettable because there was nothing strong or unique about him. But a man who stands on what he believes, even if it costs him attention, becomes unforgettable. Standards separate boys from men. A boy changes his behavior depending on who he wants approval from. A man knows exactly what he accepts and what he refuses. He doesn't let a woman play games, disrespect him, or treat him casually when he is giving effort. And here is where many men go wrong. They think being nice or being understanding means letting everything slide. It doesn't. A woman respects a man she cannot walk over. She may test his patience, his ego, or his emotional strength, but when he holds the line calmly and confidently, she pays attention. A man with standards doesn't repeat himself. If she disrespects him once, he communicates it clearly. If she does it again, he shows her there are consequences. Not by yelling, not by fighting, not by trying to teach her a lesson, but by stepping back from the situation. When a man has enough self-respect to walk away from what doesn't align with him, that becomes one of the most memorable things about him. Many men stay even when they are unhappy. They complain but never change anything. The man with standards takes action. Women never forget this type of man because he makes them level up. Being with him feels like a relationship with direction. She feels the need to bring her best self, communicate better, respect him more, and be intentional. He makes her feel like his presence is earned, not given for free. That is rare, and anything rare becomes unforgettable. A man with standards also has discipline. He doesn't fall for every compliment or every temptation. He doesn't lose his values just because someone is attractive. She remembers how he stayed loyal, how he kept his word, and how he didn't need validation from anyone. She remembers that he could say no. Most men are afraid to say no because they fear losing a woman. But the man with standards knows that losing self-respect is worse. In the end, a woman never forgets the man who respected himself, the one who didn't tolerate disrespect, the one who wasn't afraid to walk away, the one who showed her that being with him was a privilege, not a right, and long after the relationship ends, she will compare every man after him to the man who set standards and lived by them. 3. He is consistent, not just charming women. Never forget the difference between a man who talks and a man who follows through. At first, almost every man is impressive. In the beginning, everyone tries. The compliments, the attention, the sweet messages, the promises, anyone can do that. Charm is easy. Anyone can act interested when everything is new and exciting. But consistency is what separates a temporary man from a memorable one. A woman never forgets the man who didn't just win her attention, but kept it through his actions. Charming men are everywhere. They know what to say, they know how to flirt, and they know how to create excitement. But charm without consistency is just performance. It feels good at first, then it becomes confusing, then it becomes disappointing. A man who shows effort one week and disappears the next becomes forgettable because his energy was only temporary. He was exciting in the moment, but unreliable in the long run. A consistent man is different. He doesn't need to say much because his actions prove everything. He remembers what he says. If he promises something, he does it. If he gives his word, he stands on it. If he starts something with a woman, he doesn't drop his effort once he feels comfortable. A consistent man is stable, dependable, and steady. And women don't forget that because consistency builds trust. And trust is something a woman rarely gives twice. Consistency also shows emotional maturity. It means he doesn't run away when things get serious. He doesn't disappear when life gets stressful. He doesn't change based on his mood. He continues to show up, communicate, and put effort into the connection. That level of reliability stands out because most men only give effort at the beginning, then relax, then expect the woman to carry the relationship? A woman remembers the man who didn't stop trying just because he already had her attention. Here is the real difference. A charming man wants to impress her. A consistent man wants to build with her. A charming man focuses on moments. A consistent man focuses on progress. A charming man plays to her feelings. A consistent man respects her time, emotions, and expectations. Women can feel that difference deeply. A consistent man isn't perfect. He will make mistakes, say the wrong things, or get busy in life. But even then, he communicates, he stays honest, and he puts in effort to fix the problem. She never has to guess his intentions. She never has to wonder if he cares. She never has to question his loyalty. His actions answer those questions every day. That is why, years later, a woman can forget the guy who flirted with her, the guy who showed off, or the guy who talked big. But she will never forget the man who was consistent, because in a world full of short attention spans, games, and empty words, consistency is rare, and rare always becomes unforgettable. 4. He makes her feel safe, being herself. One of the strongest, most unforgettable impacts a man can have on a woman is making her feel safe to be exactly who she is, not the version she shows online. Not the version she uses to impress people, the real her, the woman behind the makeup, the confidence, the attitude, or the walls she built because of past experiences. When a man creates emotional safety, she remembers him differently, not because he gave her compliments or attention, but because he gave her space to breathe and be herself. Women want to feel understood. They want to feel heard. They want to be able to express emotions without being called too sensitive, dramatic, or crazy. When a man listens without judgment and responds with respect instead of criticism, he becomes someone she can trust. Trust is powerful. Trust is rare. And trust makes a woman open up in ways most men never get to experience. A woman wants to feel like she doesn't have to compete with other women to keep a man's attention. She wants to feel secure, not paranoid. She wants honesty, not confusion. She wants a man who communicates instead of making her guess what he's thinking. When she feels safe, she can talk about her fears, her dreams, her childhood, her insecurities, or her goals without worrying that he will use that information to embarrass her or throw it back in her face during an argument. That level of emotional safety changes everything. Women remember the man who didn't make them feel stupid for caring. They remember the man who didn't laugh at their vulnerability or walk away when things got emotional. They remember the man who made their feelings feel valid, even if he didn't agree with everything. A woman doesn't need a man to fix her problems. She needs a man who supports her while she works through them. She wants a partner, not a judge. When a woman feels safe being herself, she becomes softer, kinder, more affectionate, and more open. She is not guarded. She is not defensive. She is not pretending. That is why the men who create emotional safety often see a different side of women that others never get to see. She laughs more. She smiles differently. She trusts deeper. And that emotional connection stays in her memory long after the relationship has ended. Most men focus on physical attraction or trying to impress a woman. But what she remembers most is how she felt around him. Did she feel beautiful or compared? Did she feel supported or ignored? Did she feel loved or tolerated? When a man makes a woman feel safe in her mind and heart, she never forgets him. Because feeling safe isn't something a woman wants, it's something she needs. And once she experiences it, she realizes how rare it truly is. 5. He walks away when respect is gone. A woman never forgets the man who had the strength to walk away when respect disappeared. It doesn't matter how much he cared, how much time he invested, or how attracted he was. When a man protects his dignity, it leaves a psychological impression that stays with her long after he's gone. Most men stay even when they are being mistreated, ignored, or taken for granted because they don't want to lose her. But the man who walks away teaches her something she cannot unlearn. His self-worth is not up for negotiation. Psychologically, human beings value what can be lost. When someone is always available, always forgiving, always accepting mistreatment, the mind slowly stops appreciating them. But when a man shows that disrespect has consequences, It activates a different part of the brain, specifically the psychological principle of scarcity. People respond strongly to what they cannot easily replace. The moment he walks away, she realizes this is not a man she owns. This is a man she must earn. Women don't forget the man who leaves because it challenges them. Anyone can stay, anyone can complain, anyone can argue. But walking away requires self-control, confidence, and emotional intelligence. It shows that he values himself more than the relationship. Many men talk about respect, but the unforgettable man actually enforces it. That action makes a permanent mark. There's also another layer of psychology here. When a woman loses respect for a man, the relationship is already dying. If he continues chasing her, apologizing when he did nothing wrong, begging for attention, or accepting excuses, her respect drops even lower. But when he stands up for himself and ends things calmly, it forces her to see him differently. She starts viewing him as a man with backbone. Even if she didn't appreciate him in the moment, she will later. Walking away shows emotional discipline. It means he refuses to argue endlessly, refuses to entertain drama, and refuses to sacrifice self-respect just to keep someone close. That mindset is rare. Most men react out of emotion, anger, jealousy, insecurity, or fear of being alone. But the man who walks away uses logic. He understands that respect is the foundation of attraction. Without it, nothing else matters. This kind of man becomes unforgettable because he proves something powerful. He is in control of his life, his emotions, and his future. He doesn't stay where he's not valued. He doesn't fight for someone who's not fighting for him. He doesn't need to hurt her or embarrass her to feel strong. His silence and distance speak loudly. A woman remembers that. She will compare every future relationship to the one she lost because of disrespect. And deep down, she knows she will never meet too many men with the courage to walk away. That's why, when respect is gone, leaving is not weakness. It is the final and most powerful form of self-respect, and that is unforgettable. 6. He makes her life better, not harder. A woman never forgets a man who made her life feel easier, lighter, and more stable. Every woman, no matter how strong, independent, or confident she is, wants a partner who brings support, not problems. She wants connection, not chaos. Modern dating has made many women feel like relationships are a burden instead of a blessing, and that's why a man who improves her life stands out in her memory long after he's gone. Women want a man who adds value to their world, not another source of stress. If she spends her days dealing with work, responsibilities, family, and pressure, the last thing she wants is a man who brings insecurity, jealousy, arguments, or emotional confusion. When a man comes into her life and gives her clarity instead of mixed signals, effort instead of excuses, and consistency instead of uncertainty, she remembers him. Because that experience is rare. Making her life better isn't about spending money or being perfect. It's about presence. A man who listens when she speaks. A man who encourages her goals instead of dismissing them. A man who brings solutions, not drama. When she feels like she can come to him with problems and not be judged or ignored, she forms an emotional bond that she doesn't forget. Women remember how a man's energy affected them. Did he inspire her, calm her, motivate her, or drain her? That answer shapes how she feels long after the relationship ends. Women want a man who brings stability, someone who keeps his word, respects her time, and stands by what he says. Someone who communicates instead of disappearing. Someone who takes responsibility instead of blaming everyone else. That kind of emotional maturity makes a woman feel safe, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes even physically. When a man makes her life peaceful instead of chaotic, her guard drops. She becomes affectionate, open, trusting, and supportive in return. There's psychology behind this. Human beings feel attached to people who improve their well-being. The brain links positive experiences to the person connected with them. If she laughs more, smiles more, sleeps better, and feels lighter because of him, her mind stores that feeling. Even years later, she can forget the details, but she will remember the peace. Women don't want a man who takes over their life. They want a man who makes their life feel less heavy. Someone who adds happiness, not pressure. Someone who protects their peace, not destroys it. Someone who brings comfort, not confusion. A man like this becomes unforgettable because she doesn't feel exhausted trying to love him. She feels supported simply by having him around. And the truth is, many men bring excitement in the beginning but become stressful over time. The man who does the opposite, the man who brings stability, strength, and peace, becomes the one she wishes she never let go. Because deep down, every woman wants a partner who makes her life better, not harder. And once she experiences that, nothing else compares. 7. He doesn't lose himself. Trying to keep her. A woman never forgets the man who refuses to change who he is just to keep her. Most men don't realize how common this mistake is. Many guys start a relationship confident, independent, and full of purpose. But the moment they fear losing her, they begin to shrink. They stop living their life, stop chasing their goals, stop hanging out with friends, and stop doing the things that made them attractive in the first place. The more a man sacrifices his identity to keep a woman, the faster she loses respect for him. But the man who keeps his standards, his hobbies, his friendships, his ambitions, and his mission remains unforgettable. Women want to feel chosen, but they don't want a man who has nothing else going on. They want a partner, not a puppet. When a man gives up his entire world just to keep her around, he becomes predictable, clingy, and emotionally dependent. She doesn't feel safe with a man who needs her approval to feel valuable. She feels safe with a man who knows who he is, with or without her. Psychologically, people value what is strong, not what is needy. A man who keeps his identity is harder to replace. He has something unique about him, a life, a purpose, a direction. A woman will remember the man who never begged for attention or abandoned his self-respect. She remembers how he loved her, but also how he loved himself. A man who stays true to who he is creates attraction without even trying. He challenges her. He inspires her. He earns her admiration. He proves that being with him is a privilege, not the center of his existence. That confidence is powerful because women don't fall for men who chase. They fall for men who grow. When a man doesn't lose himself for a woman, the relationship becomes healthier. There's balance instead of obsession. There's space instead of suffocation. There's respect instead of control. She feels lucky to be part of his world, not responsible for keeping him together. That kind of dynamic makes love stronger because it's not built on fear, but on freedom. And this is why the man who stays true to himself becomes unforgettable. He showed her love without losing his identity. He cared without becoming desperate. He supported her without abandoning his goals. He stayed loyal without isolating himself. He carried himself like a man who wanted her but didn't need her to survive. That difference is powerful. Years later, she might meet men who depend on her for happiness, who have no purpose, who change themselves just to impress her. But she will always remember the man who stood on his own 2 feet, the man who had a life, a vision, and a backbone, the man who loved her, but also loved himself. That's the kind of man a woman never forgets because strength combined with love is rare, and rare always stays on the mind. Women never forget the man who brought value, peace, confidence, and emotional security into their life, not because he was perfect, but because he carried himself with strength, self-respect, and maturity. A man like that becomes a standard, someone she remembers, compares others to, and often wishes she never lost. When you understand these principles, you don't have to chase, beg, or prove anything. Your presence speaks for you. The goal isn't to impress a woman, but to build a life, mindset, and character that naturally makes you unforgettable. Because once a woman feels that kind of energy, she never forgets it.